Cleanse our consciences, Lord, we beseech thee, and grant that in all our doings, begun, continued, and ended in thee, we may see you more clearly, love you more dearly, and follow you more nearly, day by day, through Christ our Lord. Amen.
For draft local plan pre-submission document, their planning strategy to 2036 with reference to north of Southwood Ferrets location 7, in my opinion, is flawed and unlawful. Parts of the plan contravene the guidelines set out in the National Planning Policy Framework, including sections 2.23, 2.32, 4.29, 4.31, 4.35, 4.38 and 4.39, just to cite a few. The plan for the location needs to be infrastructure-led, just like other sites in the plan, particularly location 4 North East Chelmsford, which for 3,000 homes is to receive 2 new roads, an improved bus service with superhighway, a new secondary school, 2 new primary schools, 2 standalone nurseries, 2 neighbourhood areas with healthcare provision and a country park. While Southwood and Ferrers, with 1,000 proposed homes, possibly more given the land area allocated, may receive a potential primary school and a standalone early years unit, with the developer expected to provide the land and total cost of physical scheme provision, a car club, improved footpaths, cycle paths, public rights of way, bridle paths and appropriate landscaping with buffering. With regard to healthcare provision, we will use 3 doctors' surgery currently located in the town centre, plus at least 1 other to be replaced with 1 facility with extant planning, which is to be provided by Sainsbury's. Is this a fair distribution of infrastructure and resources? The plan appears to treat Southwood Ferrers as a suburb of Chelmsford, which it is not, being some 13 miles distant and 22 minutes drive away from Chelmsford. Southwood Ferrers is a town set within a rural area. This assumption contravenes several parts of the NPPF, but Part 4 in particular. This local plan in its current form does not fully consider the safety, health, education provision, social needs, or appear to provide the necessary road and transport provisions for a development of this size for the residents of Southwood Ferrers and surrounding areas. And I feel it is therefore flawed and unlawful. Okay, thank you.
And I'm a resident at 8 Longmead Avenue in Chelmsford Barrow. The City Council are proposing 22,000 homes in by 2036. Okay, there is an elephant in the room. It seems that the Council and the Essex County Council and City Council don't seem to be going hand in hand. The elephant in the room is obviously the Army-Navy flyover. In January 1999, then County Highway Chairman stated that they expected temporary Army-Navy flyover to operate for another 2 decades. That time is nearly up and we are now no further forward to resolving this issue. In fact, parts of the structure are adhering to the laws of gravity and falling off. This is a piece that we picked up last week, which has got polystyrene in and another filling. It's not a safe structure. How much money have we got in the pot to get this second-hand flyover replaced? Thank you.
In the outer ring road. This will destroy the special community spirit that was envisaged all those years ago and indeed that currently exists. We understand that the new North Eastern bypass will cost about £350 million and that will be built. Southwood, on the other hand, just gets some junction modelling. We understand you have targets set by central government, but you have to put development in the right place. There is nothing in this plan for existing residents. We see no evidence of sustainable infrastructure, and we ask one last time, please accept what the residents have told you and show you can truly listen. Vote to reject this plan in its current form and send it back for further review and amendment. Thank you.
intentions do not match the words in the submission. A northern ring road must be provided before building starts. Do not wait for the extra congestion caused by the 1,000 homes and the traffic from the 5,000 new homes in Malden and the Dengie. The problem seems to be cost. Paraphrase Councillor Whitehead's letter, a road to the north of the site will be very expensive, making unattractive to purchasers. History shows that providing bypasses brings communities together. The 2018 Infrastructure Delivery Plan allocates 1.9 million for a footbridge and 2 control crossings over the Burnham Road. How will these improve traffic flow? An outer ring road cost can be offset by using this cash and using much of the existing 1012 as a local road for both communities. At a stroke, this would integrate the new town, providing wide cycle paths, footways, safer crossings and less pollution. 10 million is allocated for A132 junction improvements. This exceeds the cost of dualling 2.2 miles of the 132. Wiltshire Council dualled 2.6 this year, 2.6 miles of the A530 at Chippenham between 2 roundabouts at a cost of 7.2 million. Atkins provided a business case showing annual economic benefits to the community of 27 million and 10 to 20% reduction in journey time. By spending this 12 million wisely, the project could deliver what is needed. Where is your business case? Have you considered the total cost? Who is making and controlling these key decisions? Chelmsford City Council or the developers? It's your responsibility to minimise the total cost to the local economy and maintain a quality of life for residents. Thank you.
And Richard Highland.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Councillors. My name is Richard Highland from Gallywood. Chelmsford City Council local plan has no undertakings from developers to fund delivery of the necessary infrastructure to support an increase of 21,000 houses and 55,000 square metres of retail. It's a plan to congest our city further, avoid addressing residents' concerns along the parkway, including the Army and Navy roundabout flyover, and further delay fixing our city. How much of the 2.5 billion housing infrastructure fund has Chelmsford bid for? If funds are allocated, will they solely be for the Chelmsford waterside development or to be used for Chelmsford-wide infrastructure needed to reduce the risk to existing residents living here today?
I understand there are no other questioners, so at this point I am going to ask for the presentation, which I hope will help to answer some of the questions. So, Jeremy Potter, will you do that? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Councillors. First of all, I just wanted to say that we have got to a very important stage in the preparation of our local plan, and this meeting tonight is a very important meeting to submit that plan to the Secretary of State, to the government, to have a look at it and to consider all of the representations and many of the points that you've heard tonight, and within those representations, and go through an open and fair process through an independent examination of our plan. What I can say is that the plan has been 3 years in the preparation. It's got, we think, is a positive vision. We think it emphasises enabling new development. We want to attract new investment, and I think you're seeing that investment being attracted to Chelmsford through all the measures that are being put in place at the moment. We also want, and we are listening, we have based our proposals on 3 comprehensive rounds of consultation, and we think it is a sound strategy, and we think it does meet the whole of the city's needs. We have to think about everyone's needs across the city. We're not going to meet everyone's requirements and satisfy everyone's representations to us, But I think what we need to do is look and see how we can highlight some of our plan's key principles. And one of those is delivering growth. We're unashamedly delivering growth in the city. We want Chelmsford to prosper and to grow. And by doing that, we have a dynamic, expanding new city. We do have ambitious targets for homes and jobs, but that provides economic investment and activity within the city. And Chelmsford being one of the major economic centres within the East of England. Another key principle is protecting valuable assets. We do think there are some important, valuable countryside and assets to protect, and the greenbelt, the river valleys, areas of high quality landscape, sites of nature conservation importance, historic and development. Historic environment, what you will see in our plan is lots and lots of open countryside protected. The river valley is protected, a large part of the countryside to the south and west of the city centre protected through the greenbelt. So it is about protecting assets as well. It's also about promoting sustainable development. We need to maximise the use of these brownfield sites. These are the sites in the middle of our city centre. They encourage people not to travel. So if you're living right in the middle of the city centre, you're in the most sustainable location close to the railway station, the services and facilities. So therefore, focusing development in those most sustainable locations is key for us. But also, locating development close to existing or new infrastructure. We've heard a lot about infrastructure tonight, but infrastructure, this is unashamedly, again, a plan for the delivery of new infrastructure. And I'll go on and talk about that a little bit more. Providing locations that provide the alternative to travel by the means of the private car. If we can provide people choice by locating development in places where they don't have to jump into their car every time they need to go anything, then we're minimising those issues in terms of congestion, which we all know does face Chelmsford from in the peak time. And also promoting economic well-being and sustainable forms of construction. Another really important part of our plan is creating places where people really want to live. So it's creating a sense of place. Attractive places, the master planning process that is required for the local plan to ensure that happens and it's within the heart of the process. But it's also about involving communities and neighbourhood planning groups in that preparation of those allocations. So actually providing local people more of a say about what actually happens on the allocations that are within our local plan. And another really important point is the fact that we have to have a site and a plan, a local plan that is deliverable. So the plan before you members gives you a range of sites. It provides you with some very large sites and a range of small sites as well, because that helps in terms of the delivery and providing a consistent delivery of new homes. Because don't forget, that's what we're tested on. We're tested on our annual delivery rate. And also we're looking at strategic growth locations that have the necessary scale to provide infrastructure. We could put lots of small sites all the way across the city centre, but you won't be getting that critical mass to provide infrastructure. And we need to test those to make sure that they're viable and deliverable. And that has got us onto the spatial strategy that we talk about. I'll go on and talk about. It's planning positively, maximising opportunities for infrastructure. So in summary, on this part of the introduction, local needs identified and accommodated in the most sustainable way. We say we maximise new infrastructure provision, we protect important assets, we have undertaken 3 rounds of consultation. So in response to, I think it was Mr. Carr, Stephen Carr, I mean, we have been listening. We've undertaken 3 rounds of comprehensive consultation. It's underpinned by evidence as well. You'll probably see in the corner, and I've talked about that a lot, we've got lots of paper unfortunately that supports our local plan, but there is an evidence, a comprehensive evidence base that supports our proposals. It's underpinned by that evidence and then it's tested as well. So not only is it underpinned by some evidence, we then test it through some independent testing, some sustainability of testing, habitat appraisals, impact modelling, the traffic modelling that's been undertaken, the flood modelling and projections on wastewater. All of those things go into the mix in terms of getting to where we are. So what we're doing, we're submitting this local plan, as I said to government, to consider effectively the outstanding objections to the plan. That's the purpose of that process. So we've got, this plan's gone to Development Policy Committee and Cabinet and has had recommendations to full council to seek approval to submit that. And there's a covering report, in fact there's two covering reports, there's a report for council and a covering report for the Development Policy Committee. And you also have a green sheet that was decided through those two meetings, Development Policy Committee and the Cabinet. So why is a new plan needed? We need to establish a new vision for the City of Chelmsford. We need to continue that planned growth and approach to increased growth. We need to maintain that rolling supply of houses, and we need to align infrastructure with that growth. Roads, transport, water cycle, schools, health, green spaces, and that's just a few of those bits of infrastructure. And more importantly, government requires local authorities to have up-to-date plans. It isn't a choice for us, it's a statutory obligation for authorities to undertake this work. It's difficult, as I said before, we can't please everyone, but there is a requirement for us to do that. And that's what we get if we get this right. And our last plan has been, we feel, a continuing success in terms of what that can deliver on the ground. But talking about infrastructure delivery and talking about what actually is happening. So the here and now of infrastructure delivery, the development at Bewley, so this is one development, is actually providing nearly £90 million of infrastructure investment for public infrastructure. That's 3 new schools, a secondary school, 2 primary schools, new roads, new improved buses, healthcare, affordable housing, community facilities. Taking the point that was made regarding affordable housing, I think that was, let's have a look, that was, I think it was Mr. Robinson from South Woodland Ferrers in terms of affordable housing. At Bewley, we are achieving 27% at the moment of affordable housing. But what you have to realise that Bewley is providing significant other elements of infrastructure as well. And all of our other greenfield sites that are in our allocated, that are being allocated and being built are delivering 35%. So Bewley is providing that massive boost to investment in the northeast of Chelmsford. In other areas, we're effectively securing about £20,000 per new home in terms of infrastructure provision, and that gets allocated to things like roads, schools, community facilities. So it isn't just the large developments, the really large developments such as Bewley that are providing for that. And in addition to that, we have around £20 million already being secured through the community infrastructure levy. This council was the first in Essex to have a community infrastructure levy, and it continues to be. I think there's only 2 in Essex that have that still, but that is continuing to be an important part of the infrastructure delivery mix. So again, the here and now, that was developers. So you can see that developers we are securing significant amounts of infrastructure from developers. But it isn't just developers. We are, as a city council and through partners at Essex County Council, lobbying hard for other types of funding. So the SELECT funding, that's the Local Enterprise Partnership funding. We've secured, or the County Council with us have secured £7 million package for Chelmsford to Braintree improvements, the A131, A130. They're being undertaken as we speak. There's a £15 million package, the Chelmsford Growth Package, for cycling, walking and public transport in Chelmsford urban area. We think that's an important part of the mix. However, as we've heard before, and what was said at the last meeting, one of those schemes within that growth package isn't supported by the City Council, and that is the Baddow bus gate. And we've made our representations to Essex County Council to set out our opposition to the Baddow bus gate. The remainder of the package we think are important parts to ensure the sustainability of growth within Chelmsford. But not only that, there's £13 million being put in public realm investments. If you've walked along Belmead recently and looked at Central Park, you'll see a really good example of public realm developer money being put in to improve our city's parks and our public realm. In addition, you can go round to the back of the station, you'll see improvements there to Mill Yard, creating connections between the railway station and the Marconi development behind. Again, funded through select funding and developer funding. Cities parks as well, you'll see significant improvements in terms of our parks, because Section 106, the developers funding, is getting put into that as well. And also, we've ourselves allocated significantly £6.5 million in terms of contribution towards the flood alleviation scheme. So what I hope you can see, that there's an ongoing, right now, we are putting in significant infrastructure resources into providing infrastructure now. Again, affordable housing, and picking up the point that was made by Mr. Robinson. I mean, the target is 35%. In 17-18, we achieved 26% if you take out the sites where you can't actually achieve affordable housing because they're too small, so it's only certain sites we can achieve affordable housing. In 16-17, it's 33%. So what actually you can see that we are also, in addition to getting infrastructure of a scale that is seen nowhere else in Essex, we are actually delivering a significant amount of affordable housing in addition to that. And 35% affordable housing, as I said earlier, is achieved on all but one of the greenfield sites under construction or recently built. So the new local plans going forwards, we've got to this point, we've got to that purple stage, so we're working down the ladder. As you can see, we've had 3 stages of consultation to get to where we are. And initial work started in 2014. Our need for development is just over 800 homes a year and just over 700 jobs a year. So there's a quite good match between jobs and homes that we're proposing within the development plan. So housing numbers, and there was quite a lot of discussion about the housing number of 21,000. If I could just make this clear, because I think it is important, at that 21,000, or nearly 22,000 in fact, 4,098 of them have already been built. So they're already there, they exist. 7,639 of them are already committed. So they have planning permission. So a lot of those are at North East Chelmsford or other planning permissions that we have within our existing housing trajectory. So actually, the new local plan is actually only allocating just over 10,000 new homes. I just want to make that absolutely clear for members, because we look at our housing need from 2013. That's where our base date is, 2013. So we need to look and see how many homes were completed in 2013 and how many homes have got planning permission from that point in time. So the evolution of the plan. Our first stage was issues and options. We put forward different approaches, and they were considered within the first consultation. And there were 3 main approaches put forward, and development was spread across the council's area using those 3 spatial approaches. But what actually came out of that issues and options consultation and the responses that we had was some principles. And those principles, as you see on the slide there, were the ones that really shone out and really got support. So it was maximising brownfield land for development. It was continuing the renewal of Chelmsford City Centre and our urban areas. It was locating development at well-connected, sustainable locations. We would say that Southfield and Ferrers, in answer to many of the questions tonight, is a well-connected and sustainable location. It is the 2nd largest town within our area. It has a railway station, it has a town centre, it has the services and the facilities that you would expect to see in a town of that size. Utilising garden community principles, protecting the greenbelt, a national objective for protect the greenbelt. Another important spatial principle that we've embedded within our plan. Valued landscapes, heritage, biodiversity, respecting the pattern of existing developments, making sure developments are deliverable and, importantly, served by necessary infrastructure. And also, I think it's really important, is planning for the long term. We need a plan that's resilient. We don't want a plan that is piecemeal, where we have to look at all sorts of different alternatives. We want to be bold and plan for the longer term. So those spatial principles within our first consultation were supported, very well supported, and that led us to actually evolve our plan into a preferred option, which then tested and refined that option and had a draft of strategic policies and development management policies, and updated our infrastructure scheme and our evidence base to support those proposals that are within the third option. So how has it evolved again? There's been a series of iterations, our priorities, our vision, how much development is needed, the development management policies, the strategic policies, all of those have evolved through consultation. But those changes have also been reflective of what evidence we have as council collected and tested. And also looking at a conversation with our partners as well, especially what's called our duty to cooperate partners. We have an obligation to consult with our neighbouring local authorities to actually ensure that where there are cross-boundary issues, we take that into account. And those evidence base, they've been exceptionally wide. We've looked at new homes, how many new homes, jobs, retail infrastructure, open space community facilities. We've also looked at how much development, how much land is actually out there for development, because we need to ensure that it's deliverable. There's no point in allocating sites that no one will deliver. Also, there's constraints, so flood risk, ecology, open space landscape, and we've tested those independently using a sustainability appraisal and also viability testing and traffic modelling. So they have been done independently of our approach, which we think is an important part to ensure objectivity of the choices that we're making. Also, consultation responses have informed the local plan. Stakeholder meetings, duty to cooperate, as I've said, national policy and guidance. We have to be in accordance with national policy. And also we need to look at what is actually being planned in the area irrespective of the local plan. So we have things like the Chelmsford North East bypass from the past local plan and the new railway station at Hewley. So those are things that we need to take into account. So that gets us to a spatial strategy that you have before you tonight, members, in the local plan. And that's 3 growth areas, and I will just very quickly skip through those. The first growth area being Chelmsford and Urban Central, the second one being North Chelmsford, and between those 2 areas, that's the vast majority of new development that's happening there. South and East Chelmsford, as we've heard tonight, there is an allocation of sites in Southwood and Ferris for 1,000 new homes, and again there are some sites in Bicknacre, smaller sites, and an allocation for Danbury, and they will be undertaken through the Danbury neighbourhood plan. So, growth area 1, we've just got just over 3,000 new homes. Employment space, 9,000 square metres of employment space, 11,500 square metres of retail space. That's food retail, it's not comparison retail. Chelmsford has grown, as we all know, for anyone that goes to Bond Street will know that there's been a significant expansion of our comparison retail, and we don't think there's much need in our plan period to expand on that. It's food retail, i.e. supermarkets or convenience, that is the major need going forwards. But the infrastructure in growth area 1, we have expanded new park and ride sites, expanded park and rides, existing ones, a new park and ride, a new country park in East Chelmsford, a visitor centre, a new access to Sanford Mill, new schools in West Chelmsford, an expansion of existing schools within the urban area, new early years childcare provision, new neighbourhood centres, new strategic recreation and open space. And these are all being provided by the developer. I think that's, again, a really important thing for members to be aware of. We are maximising the opportunity for those types of infrastructure by embedding those requirements within our local plan. Growth area 2, our major growth area, 4,500 new homes, and that's above and beyond what's already got permission in North East Chelmsford, a significant area of change going forwards. 45,000 square metres of employment space. That would be a big new business park, and what we're looking at and the need within Chelmsford is for offices, research and development, advanced manufacturing. Those sorts of sectors are where the growth we see will be. Expanded the new park and ride, new country parks, new links into the Broomfield Hospital, new schools, another new secondary school in North East Chelmsford will be required, neighbourhood centres, new strategic recreation and open space, all provided by the developer. And growth area 3, as I said, growth area 3 is the smallest area in terms of growth, but significantly there will be infrastructure provision within South and East Chelmsford. So At South Woodland Ferrers, we are looking at improvements to the A132. It isn't the links that needed improvement. So going back to, I think, Mr. Brunning's point, it isn't the actual link to dual carriage, that A132, that will create capacity. It's actually improving the junctions that improves the capacity. That's what our independent traffic modelling is saying. So actually improving those junctions where people queue is important, rather than adding more road space so for people to get to the junction quicker and then queue longer. So that's the facts that come through on the traffic modelling. Also, we want to improve sustainable transport links, maximising the opportunities for sustainable transport, maximising the opportunities for linkages across the A132 to make sure that there isn't the severance that has been implied within some of the questions. Potential new school, a new primary school, and the reason why in South Woodland Ferrers that there isn't as much in terms of primary schools is because there is existing capacity. Essex County Council as Education Authority have informed us that there is existing capacity in secondary school. Woodland Ferrers School has capacity. The primary school, South Woodland Ferrers has already had one primary school shut. We are promoting another primary school as part of the new development. We hope that there will be a need for a new primary school, but we can't ask developers to provide new facilities where there's capacity in the existing facility, because that just wouldn't be lawful. So going forwards in terms of the new local plan infrastructure, we think that the new North East Chelmsford Garden Village, as it's being promoted as, will provide significant new developer investment for public infrastructure. We think that's going to be about another 100 million on top of the 90 million that you've heard earlier, and that's for more new schools, more roads, more buses, healthcare, affordable housing, community facilities, another new country park in North East Chelmsford. And in addition to that, on the houses, we are looking between £20,000 and £30,000 per home to be secured for other infrastructure on other sites. And then, in addition to that, we have the projected additional £90 million from seal receipts, again, above and beyond the Section 106 requirements. And you'll be seeing, and I know members that on the Cabinet have been looking at the actual seal allocations and how much money is being provided through seal going forward. So, again, it isn't just about developers, and I think there was a question in regard to the Housing Infrastructure Fund. This council, with Essex County Council, have been shortlisted for one of those bids for the forward funding grant, £250 million. Out of the 4 bids in Essex, we were the prioritised bid. And that bid is for Chelmsford North East Bypass and Beaulieu Railway Station. In addition to that, we've been successful for the Housing Infrastructure Fund grant for £5.7 million of funding to improve access into Chelmsford Waterside. And in addition to that,
what about the Army and Navy?
£1.5 billion is being currently invested into the Greater Anglia Railway stock, and that is replacing all trains on our network. That's £1.5 billion of investment going into our network. So I hope what you can see, members, is that actually, contrary to what I think is sometimes the received wisdom, this council has been more than successful in terms of actually providing for existing development, and within our new local plan, making sure there's mechanisms in place for new infrastructure. So the pre-submission plan is the document that we want to submit to examination. Any significant changes would mean that we would need to go back a stage, because we would need to test them. So what you've heard me say earlier about making sure our proposals are tested, if we significantly change things, we have to test those, and that takes us back a stage. The consultation was seeking representations on whether the council's plan is sound or not. We have made some minor changes, but what we think of those minor changes are, they don't go to the heart, the soundness of the document. They are there to look at any minor unresolved objections. But those major unresolved objections will be considered by the inspector. So I think it's really important also for people that have made comments and may have heard that we haven't made changes, those comments are still live. Those comments on the last consultation are still live. They will go forward to the inspector, and then the inspector will look at those. Main issues from that consultation, we thought there's general support for the general principles from the duty to cooperate partners. Our statutory bodies were supportive, and we feel that there were some legal and procedural issues raised, but we feel that they are issues that we have strong evidence to support our approach. We've had objections from parish and town councils and the public, obviously, in terms of the site allocations, and the main issues: traffic congestion, flood risk, landscape impact, and lack of infrastructure, as you've heard tonight. So a summary of the changes that we've put in: we need to change the plan to reflect the latest position with regard to mitigating European wildlife sites, and that's called the RAMS, that's the Recreation Avoidance Mitigation Strategy, and that's a strategy that's being done Essex-wide. We needed to update our housing numbers because another April has gone, and when we go to the new financial year, we update all those, so our completions go up, our permissions go down, and we remove the police HQ as an allocated site because they aren't moving. Police aren't moving from that site, aren't vacating that site in its entirety. Minor changes as well in terms of heritage policy. Traffic impacts of the South Woodham allocations also needs to be assessed outside of Chelmsford's area, so we've been speaking to Basildon and Rochford about that to make sure that any impacts are also assessed outside of our council's area, and updating the monitoring framework as well. So what's being submitted? A whole raft of documents are being submitted, and we're looking to submit that plan if members approve the plan tonight on the 29th of June. What happens next? The planning inspector decides whether the plan is sound. Our programme officer that we've appointed deals with all the queries and administration of the examination process. And hearing timetable will be published as soon as the inspector has been allocated to our plan. Written representations, so people can come along, will be held in here. People that have made representations and have indicated they want to speak can come along. Written representations will carry the same weight. So if you haven't made or indicated you want to speak at the examination, the inspector will give the written reps just as much weight as the oral evidence. So the timetable, we are hopefully at submission for local plan for examination, as I say, June. The hearing sessions, October, November, and we hope that, all things being well, the adoption will be late this year, but most likely to be early 2019. There is a green sheet that I referred to before. I'm not going to go through that in detail. There are some minor amendments that were picked up through the two committees. So in conclusion, I think it's important to say that the local plan is based on a comprehensive evidence base. There's been widespread consultation undertaken. We have fulfilled the duty to cooperate with our partners. We don't have any outstanding issues with other councils objecting to our plan because we haven't cooperated with them. We have tested our proposals through the means that I've described earlier. And probably, importantly, the recommendation is that the local plan is positively prepared. These are the tests: positively prepared, justified, effective and consistent with national planning policy. I do not, I think Donna Reilly was making the point about it not being consistent with the NPPF. On the contrary, we say our plan is consistent with the NPPF. The NPPF does talk about making the best use of the most sustainable locations. So I would say that our plan is very much aligned with national planning policy. So we feel, members, that our plan is sound and it's ready to submit for independent examination. So I think I hope I've covered many of the points within the questions. No doubt if there were anything else, then members could ask me to clarify.
Thank you.
Excuse me, there were 2 questions that
Thank
we
you.
asked. Would
Thank
we
you.
answer?
Excuse
They're not
me.
answered.
Thank you very much. Excuse me, I am just about to ask if Councillor Whitehead has anything to add to the questions.
Questions were raised on various other points. You're quite correct, we haven't forgotten on the situation, particularly with the Army and Navy. And I can only remind you that this authority is not the Transport Authority. We are not responsible for the Army and Navy or any of the highway works that are being carried out. We only are consultees, as with the growth package. Similarly, the Army and Navy, everybody here agrees, of course, that it should be replaced. Nobody's quite sure which way it should be replaced, because it could go one way or it could go the other way. And in fact, it probably goes the wrong way at the moment. Those are questions that only evidence will produce the right answer to. Who will fund that? The answer is, again, not this council. It is not our function to do. We can't fund things that are not our function to do. What we have to do is to get the work done by those who are responsible, and we as a council have constantly lobbied the county council for that work to take place. As I say, nobody would disagree with what you're saying. We've had lots of meetings with them, and the cost appears to escalate to 40 million and 50 million and so on. Why that should be, I don't know, because I'm not a highway engineer. The points that were being made by Mr. Potter there, to paraphrase, hate to think of that really, Tony Blair, is evidence, 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 because that's exactly what we have to produce. We as a council here tonight, all the members here tonight, have looked at all the papers, and we know how many there are, and the evidence is the key factor of that. It's very easy to say, well, don't put development here, don't put it there, but if you don't have the evidence, then you can't substantiate your case. We got, Ed Sheeran, who wanted to build, see that in the paper the other day, really? And great crested newts were found in his back garden or something. So they did loads and loads of studies, and they discovered there weren't any. But nonetheless, somebody first of all had to do all the studies to prove they weren't there. Now, on a huge scale, we're in the same situation with everything that we do. So the traffic modelling on the A132 or whatever, yes, all of that has been looked at by people who are experts. Now, in these days of experts, we've seen in various tragedies recently that experts are not all they're made up to be. But from our point of view, we are not experts. We have to employ people who are experts. We have excellent officers who've done a huge amount of work, and I particularly want to thank Mr. Potter and all the team in planning for the work they've carried out over the past 3 years to get us where we are. I'd like to thank Councillor Shepherd, the chairman of the development policy, and all the team on there, and the cabinet member as well, Councillor Gulliver, for all their diligence and hard work. We've spent months, literally, reading everything, all the evidence. It comes in huge packages at Christmas, Whitsun, Easter, and believe me, I'm not joking about this, it comes on our doorstep in piles like that. We have studied all of those things. Again, we're not experts. We have to look at the studies that come to us and say, are they sound? That's the whole point of the local plan. It is going to a planning inspector. The planning inspector, as such, him or her, will look at all the evidence that's been produced, will look at all the comments that you've raised, and he or she will decide whether the plan is sound. All we're being asked tonight is to take it off to the planning inspector. We're not saying houses should be built here. What we're saying is this is where we think is the right place for properties to be built, offices to be built, infrastructure to be put in. Development at South Woodham can take place round with rows at the top or the bottom. That isn't our job to do with that. Most of you actually didn't object to houses being built there. One or two of you did, but actually most of you said if they were to be built there, there should be a road round the top. Yes, that's quite a possibility, but you're not actually saying they shouldn't be built there. I know Mr. Green agrees that everything should stay the same. Well, that's not the way of life anymore. We have to add to the facilities. This council has added to the facilities at Southwood with the swimming pool, with the 3G pitch, and all the other work that's been put in there, and that's been paid for, and further work will take place as development proceeds. So, you know, I was quoting the Chronicle last week, I am quoting occasionally, correctly, sorry, Chronicle, to be fair, which said, the old chestnut, you know, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Now, Basildon Council spent forever, 4 o'clock in the morning, trying to agree their local plan, agreed it all, and then a few weeks later, torn it all up and started all over again. Castle Point couldn't even agree their plan, it didn't actually get past the first stages. Brentwood and various other authorities in Essex have not agreed plans. They will be forced to put development in places that the residents don't want it. Now you can say, well, we don't want it here, we don't want it there, but it's worse when that happens. It happened in Beaulieu Park several years ago, because that's why that was built without infrastructure. I quoted that before, but it is the truth. Great Lees and Beaulieu Park were built without the infrastructure that went from it. Developers didn't put in all the infrastructure. As Mr. Potter has rightly said, we get developers to pay for all of those things. You see huge lists of those. And our job is to make the developers pay as much as possible for your benefit. We believe our plan does that, and it is projected over a period. We're not building 800 houses tomorrow in any one site. They get built over a period. I know one developer says, well, you can't build a garden city, and so on. But interestingly enough, the three local authorities, Tendring and Colchester and Braintree, had their plans recently rejected by the planning inspector for garden cities along the A120 because, guess what, they didn't have enough evidence, and they've been sent back to get more to prove that the works that are being proposed can happen. We don't want to see that happen here. What we want to see is our plan being a sound plan and produced for the benefit of all of our residents. And that is what we're here tonight to agree. I know you can't always agree with us, and of course I understand that. We are doing our best for everywhere, South Woodham particularly. Unfortunately, Maureen Moles, who used to be here, always tell us all off if we never mention South Woodham. I've mentioned it probably more than most this evening, and deservedly so. It's a delightful place, and we want to see it expand in a controlled way. All the other parts of Chelmsford too are expanding. I could list all the benefits that you've got from developers. Mr. Potter has helpfully put up many of those. We could have a whole slideshow of development that's taking place. And from that, it is certain, from my point of view, and I recommend to this council that this plan now goes forward for examination. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Right. So we move before we come on to item 6 then, which we had quite a read as we've answered all the questions. We'd like to move on to item 6 on the agenda.
You've not answered my question. Sorry.
I believe all the questions have been answered.
No, it wasn't.
Can I just say something?
Whitehead said...
You said you were going to do a presentation, and you were going to cover off. That presentation was led by Chelmsford City. Okay, it's all about Chelmsford City. We can talk about trains, we can talk about alternative travel by car. We haven't got a train service, a decent train service in Woodham. So where are the train improvements? We've heard about all this money knocking around. Where's the money for South Woodham? So I'm sorry, Madam Councillor, you said that the presentation would cover off the issues. We had an independent over here, never met him in his life. He said the most sensible thing all night, that you hadn't been listening. You haven't listened again. We've said what we've said. You've said it will be answered by the presentation. All I've heard is Chelmsford City. I've not heard anything about South Woodham, only little bits. So I'm sorry, you haven't answered the questions.
Could I just ask Mr. Potter to answer that particular item on the question on South Woodham Ferrers, because you obviously don't seem to have heard the answer. Thank you.
No, that's a little bit condescending. I'm going to leave now because I'm going to get involved in saying things as well.
Rude.
And it's been classed as rude. No, you need to deal with the reality of living in this city and driving around this city. It's all right building 20,000 more homes, but there are no new roads. There is no road improvements going on. The bus service is not fit for purpose. You guys ought to come out with the people that work in this city every single day. It's a blooming nightmare.
That's why it's the party that don't care.
Can I now ask, if you're going to leave, can you please leave?
I said I was leaving before I said what I said. You are your own backside and you don't listen and you never will.
It's all right building 20,000 more homes, but there are no new roads. There is no road improvements going on. The bus service is not fit for purpose. You guys ought to come out with the people that work in this city every single day. It's a blooming nightmare.
That's why it's the party that don't care.
Can I now ask, if you're going to leave, can you please leave?
I said I was leaving before I said what I said. You are your own backside and you don't listen and you never will. just called me deaf, by the way, so thank you for that. I think it's very rude and I like that minute, because I wouldn't expect a mayor to say that I didn't listen or I couldn't hear it.
I'm sorry,
then I must be a bit deaf.
I'm asking
that's why the person said you were rude.
Okay, I apologise, and I'm now asking Mr. Potter to answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, some of my slides actually did refer to the amount of money that is being achieved per dwelling. Now, that dwelling could be in Southwood Ferrers, it could be in Broomfield, it could be in Great Leeds, as well as North East Chelmsford. So what you heard me say was that £20,000 to £30,000 per new home is going to be put in to new infrastructure proposals, and that will be the same in Southwood and Ferrers as it is within North East Chelmsford. So that £20,000 to £30,000 could potentially, for the sake of 1,000 new homes, is £20 million. So £20 million, how that can be spent in terms of improvements to existing facilities, improvements to the existing roads, creating those crossings across the A132, creating better connections between the new town and the old town, and also, really importantly, providing a significant amount of community infrastructure levy. The community infrastructure levy in places which have a neighbourhood plan, 25% of those receipts go to the town council to build and to provide infrastructure as they see fit. So actually, you're not just seeing a proposal where it's just focused on North East Chelmsford. You will see new development creating new infrastructure. That is the only way infrastructure will be provided within the city. All the areas that have had significant new growth, you will see infrastructure. The areas that don't have growth, I'm afraid, won't be attracting the same infrastructure provision. So in terms of a couple of points that I just wanted to add that I think maybe were missed in addition, if that's okay, Madam Mayor. In terms of the Army and Navy, when it would be replaced, our policy within our local plan identifies the Army and Navy junction as a key junction for improvements. Policy S11, it's noted, it's put into a statutory policy. Therefore, when the County Council have completed their feasibility work on what needs to happen on the Army and Navy, we have the opportunity to fund that, either through community infrastructure levy or through pooled Section 106. So there are opportunities. We just need to find out what the best solution is for the Army and Navy, and the County Council's Highways Authority are working on that. Also, in terms of why expand Southwood and Ferrers, and I think Mr Green made the point about going to the Essex Records Office and looking at how Southwood and Ferrers was planned in the first place. I think Southwood was a great riverside new town that was promoted in a certain way, but places can't stay still. If places stay still, then they tend to not have the investment and the infrastructure that comes with new development. And also the fact that every new home, 35% of the new homes are affordable new homes. And taking that point in terms of, I think there was a point about who could get those new homes. Those new homes, affordable new homes, will be the people in the most need. And the relationship between their need and their income and their availability for new housing. There was also a question about 100% affordable housing. And I think that would be a laudable aim, but unfortunately, developers they're a company, they need to make money, they need to actually provide a return for their investment. They're not a charity. 35% of those homes through our policy needs to be affordable. We have 100% affordable schemes on what's called rural exception schemes. So if you go to West Hanningfield, or if you go to East Hanningfield, or even if you go to Stock in the Greenbelt, we made an exception to those because there was such a local need for 100% affordable housing. We've done that through our policy. So there is potential for that. And then just one final question. I think there was a question regarding, I couldn't quite get all of the questions, sorry Madam Mayor, but there was a question regarding the bus lane. I think it was at the Army and Navy. I mean, the County Council are the Highways Authority, so I'd have to refer that question to them for a final answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Potter. As there are no more questions, I think we will now move on to item 6 on the agenda, which we've already introduced. You have before you, Council, the detailed report from the Development Policy Committee on the 7th of June. This was approved and the recommendations in it. Those recommendations are supported by the Cabinet meeting on the 13th of June, which recommended to the Council that we agree with. Can I ask Councillor Whitehead to add?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't want to repeat what I said earlier on, that would be unfair, really. I hope all the points that have been raised have been covered, and I'm sure that Councillor Robinson and his colleagues may want to say a few words too, really. So what I would suggest is that I allow others to speak and sum up in a normal way.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone wishing to speak? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you very much for suggesting I might want to have something to say. The Liberal Democrats start from the position that this country hasn't built enough houses for 20 or more years. And nothing like enough houses that can be afforded by younger people and others on low incomes, people who are vital to our society's future. So to that extent, I agree with Councillor Whitehead. We didn't see many objections, if hardly any objections, to the number. So it's not the number. I think there is now widespread acceptance that we need to, as a country, get on and build lots more homes. But the problem is the infrastructure. Do we have the infrastructure to create real communities and communities that are genuinely sustainable? So that's why we object to some of the policies of the administration in this local plan. Obviously, it's worth noting that one of the reasons that we need to build quite so many houses is that we're, in a way, a victim of a number of successes. Not just that people want to come to Chelmsford because it's a great place and is close to London, but also the success of healthier living, meaning many thousands of people are living well into their 80s, 90s and even hundreds. They need housing, but in previous generations, of course, they wouldn't have been here. So there is a wide range of housing needs. The country needs to be building 300,000 homes a year, a third of which need to be genuinely affordable, and Chelmsford needs to take its share. But with that said, and I think we all agreed on that objective, where does this plan go wrong? Well, it's wrong on some of the locations, it's weak on the environment, it's weak on affordability, and optimistic on infrastructure. The Liberal Democrat view is, and always has been through this plan process, that there are too many what I call smallish sites. Sites in the region of 200 houses are big enough to have an impact on their community, but not big enough to get significant investment in infrastructure, such as a whole new school, or a new GP surgery, or a dentist surgery. You only get a bit of money. There were a number of such sites in the current plan, and there are more in this proposed plan. So we tend to the view that larger sites that deliver infrastructure are better. But larger sites that involve multiple developers are necessary. Monopoly, as we're always told, is bad for competition. Build-out and delivery rates are at risk. So there are some welcome policies, I hope they are delivered, which encourage self-build and small builders to get involved in these larger sites. The more diversity we have on the developer side, the builder side, the better it is for delivery and also very good for creating local jobs. Too much for housing is in the wrong place. As we know, the County Council's congestion says that the Broomfield Road corridor, of all the many congested corridors, is the most congested of all routes into central Chelmsford. Yet this new local plan still has hundreds of new houses allocated in that corridor. On the environment, too much is aspirational rather than requirements. For example, Policy S3 says the Council will encourage new development that provides opportunities for renewable and low carbon energy technology and provides opportunities for decentralised energy systems. That's rather mealy-mouthed, it's not prescriptive. A more robust policy would require new homes to be zero carbon. That was the Labour government policy, which the Liberal Democrats supported, which we kept through the coalition until 2015, and then the Conservatives dumped the zero carbon policy. In the words of David Cameron, it's just all that green crap. On affordability, the 35% policy remains, and there are some new policies in the plan which are welcome. For the first time, there is a policy on housing types. It's good to see. And the policy for affordable homes will apply to sites of more than 10 units, not 15. That's really good to see, but let's hope it actually happens, because it hasn't happened. Now, Mr. Potter said it's 27% at Bewley. Yes, it is, and 27 is not 35, and the difference between 27 and 35 is about 300 affordable homes. So, the problem is that we haven't had that policy delivered. For 14 of the last 15 years of this Conservative administration, they have missed the target. If they had delivered 35% affordable homes of what was actually built, we would have had an extra 828 affordable homes. And if the actual delivery total had been met, that would have been nearer 1,000. On infrastructure, the number one objective of the current plan, which was going to be so important, a new station, has, like so many of our trains, been delayed. The Conservatives attacked the Liberal Democrats when we ran the council until 2003 for not having a plan to deliver the station before 2012. You told us that that was unambitious. But it now looks like it will be 2025 before it's ready. So the policies look good. It's the delivery that matters. For example, the infrastructure in the current plan includes a new road from Channels to the Bourne interchange. The developer at Channels was going to be blocked from building more than 350 houses until it was finished. But in January 2015, they came here asking to be let off that condition. They offered some other road improvements in order to be let off that restriction, but 3.5 years later, we're still waiting for those things, the widening at Sainsbury's and the 3 other things that they promised. So we need bold policies, public sector-led policies, to deliver infrastructure and not leave it to the whims of developers. We need bold initiatives, not sticking plasters like Baddow Busgate. We need things that are actually going to, as Mr. Potter said, it discourage people from driving into the centre of Chelmsford. One thing that